Hi. If you love LEGO and enjoy building your own designs, then you could make a little money from your hobby by posting the instructions on sites like Rebrickable.com. But how do you do it? I personally use Bricklink Studio program to design models and create the instructions too. But I couldn't find any instructions or tutorials on how to use the instruction maker on Studio, and it's changed a lot recently anyway. So now I've figured out how to use it, I thought I'd share what I'd learned. Studio is a powerful, intuitive but not entirely flawless program. You can download it for free at bricklink.com. Check out my other Studio tutorials if you haven't used it before. To really master Studio, you will need to learn a huge catalogue of potential parts, how they fit together and so on. The more experience you have building real LEGO before you start to build digitally, the better. When you're learning Studio, I would recommend building official LEGO sets imported into Studio purely for practice of using the program and learning your way around the catalogue of parts. Only start building MOCs with it when you're comfortable with the program. However, if you want to design an alternate of an official LEGO set, you'll only need to be familiar with the pieces in the set. For this tutorial, I'm going to show you how I designed a Dolphin alternate of the 31088 Deep Sea Creatures set and created instructions in Studio and uploaded onto Rebrickable. I'll share with you my recommended workflow and also how to get back on track if you make a mistake or need to make a revision. To get started, log on to lego.com. Have a look through and find a set you like. Nothing too complex to begin with. Make a note of the set number. Whilst you're here, it's a good idea to download the instructions to familiarise yourself with the official models. Ideally, download to an iPad you can have open while you work on your computer, or use a second screen if you have one. Then head into Studio and enter the File, Import Official LEGO Set menu. Enter the set number, and the parts for that set will be entered into the parts palette on the left of the screen or in Scene. When you're building an official LEGO model from instructions, I recommend using the palette, but if you're creating an alternate model of your own design, the in-scene option is really helpful. Be guided by the shapes and colours of the parts in the set. Sometimes it's just one or two distinctive parts that can give you a good idea for an alternate model. It looks like there are enough curved slopes to make a dolphin from the 31088 Deep Sea Creatures set, so that's my choice for this build. So here I've imported the official LEGO set 31088 3-in-1 Deep Sea Creatures set in Scene. I'm planning to try making a dolphin, but I'm not sure the details yet. I start dragging a few pieces into position to get a rough layout, then start building up from there. I'm trying to build creatively, by which I mean I'm not being constrained by all the proper attachments and sequence. I'm just trying to see if I can lay out the parts in roughly the right outlines and proportions. I'll figure out the connections and fill later. I'm pretty familiar with this set, so some of it is not too hard. I add some curved slopes to the body section to create a more curved outline. I end up putting a model together, but there are a few problems. The tail section is a bit short, the snout looks way too long, and the eye is in the wrong place. It looks more like a woodpecker. I slept on it, and when I came back to the model the next day, I lengthened the tail, but as I start moving the pieces around, I'm finding it hard to see the edges of the dark blue pieces. So I switch all the dark blue pieces to a lighter blue. I also repositioned the snout and the eyes, and all of a sudden it starts to look a lot more like a dolphin. I've also grouped each of the main sections into submodels. I've tried to avoid making any unnecessary submodels or nested submodels. At this stage, I would recommend building with real bricks to make sure everything fits together and the model looks and functions as expected. Even checking the stand works okay and the dolphin balances in the various poses. Once you're happy with the final build, any changes can be built back into the digital design. Now you can start to work on the instructions, but before entering instruction mode, it helps to separate the model into stages. Have a think about the sequence you want to build the model in. Select the first submodel or submodels you want to build, then right-click on them in the step panel on the right side of the window. You have the option to move them to any of the existing steps or into a new step. Select step 1. Then do the same for the next section and move that into step 2, and so on. Once you're done putting parts of each section into different steps, you should save your work, then click on the Instructions button on the toolbar. The Instructions section has two main tabs, Step Editor and Page Design. Start with Step Editor. You can see all of the 5 main steps on the left side of the main window. Click on the submodel for the first step in the main window and select View Steps. These steps are jumbled, so it's best just to delete all of them from the column on the left. Now you can start choosing pieces for each step. You'll actually be working backwards, removing the pieces you would add last, and so on until there are none left. Select a few on the top layer and click on Step After. Repeat this a few pieces at a time until there are only 2 or 3 left. At this step, I realised these 2 pieces could not be added to the main model one at a time, so I created a new submodel. And the same again on the other side. At this step, I realised I couldn't add the snout section in this order because it would be floating in mid-air. So I deleted all the steps in this submodel from the column on the left and started again. So just continue to remove a few pieces at a time by clicking on the Step After button. Sometimes it's submodels rather than pieces you remove, and if so, you will need to edit the sequence of steps in these nested submodels in the same way as you've been doing for the other submodels. When you've finished editing steps in a submodel, click on Return to Parent to go back to the main model. Here's a tip. You can add extra empty steps from the Step Editor window if you want to show the model from a different angle, even if you're not actually adding any more pieces in that step. When you're done, you can click on Page Design and start editing the layout of the instructions. If you click on the parts or submodel on the page, you can then edit the position of these on the page from the right-hand menu. You can alter the size and angle of the pieces or the angle of the camera. You can also drag the step image to a better position on the page. You'll see guidelines appear when you hit the center. Here I'm changing the rotation with one of the rotate buttons. I'm trying to get a better look because it looks as though there's a part missing. I checked through all the parts in the submodel and it's not hiding in any other step. Before, I showed you how to delete the steps of a submodel and start again if you discover a mistake. But if you're more than a few steps in and you don't want to delete your work, there's still a way to go back and change a part or alter the step it's in without having to start from scratch. Make a note of the step you want the parts to be added to before you exit the page designer or step editor. Then exit to the main studio window. You may need to hide some parts to reach the submodel you need to get to. Then select the submodel you want to change or add to. Double-click the submodel in the main window to enter a special mode that allows you to edit a submodel without releasing its parts. You will see the other submodels only as wireframes. You can add or change parts and they will be part of this submodel. Then double-click off the submodel to return to the main model view. The parts will be in the right submodel but not in the right step. You can correct this by making changes in the step panel on the right of the main window. Select the submodel in the step panel and right-click on it and click View. You will then see the new parts in the last step of this submodel. Just find the parts that you want to appear in the same step, click on the parts and you will then see which step they're in the step list. Then drag the new parts up into your chosen step. Or right-click and select the step number to move them to. When you then return to the instructions section, they will be in the right step. If you move the model or camera angle more than a few degrees, you should click Insert and add a flip icon, like this. Once you're done, you can hit Export to save the instructions as a PDF that you can then upload to Rebrickable. You'll also need some images, so take some photos of your model or export some renders from Studio. I also created a thumbnail image in Photoshop using a render I exported as a PNG file, as it has a transparent background like this. When you have a Rebrickable account, you can upload an MOC. Just follow the step-by-step instructions, adding a title, details, images, instructions and a parts list. You can just use the Studio file of your MOC as your parts list. Sometimes you have to edit the parts because of a difference in the way Studio and Rebrickable name parts. Generally, I have found Rebrickable suggested edits always work, so use these to find the right part number. And that's it! That's how to design a LEGO MOC Alternate in Studio, create instructions and upload to Rebrickable. Easy, right? Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. You made it this far, so why not leave a comment or give us a like? Click here to see more digital LEGO 3-in-1 creator builds, or here if you'd like to learn how to build LEGO digitally. And don't forget to subscribe to BrickSmart Workshop if you'd like to see whatever we come up with next.